I'll begin now. In 1926, the first modern standardized test was given, the SAT. By 1965, in their K-12 education, the average American student took 1 to 5 standardized tests. Today, in K-12 education, American students take 112 standardized tests. This wave of a crazed amount of standardized tests is hurting American students and students around the world, which is why I affirm the resolution that standardized testing does more harm than good. My first reason is that it's harmful towards students' well-being. Standardized tests promote stress in students. A study reported by CPR News found that 11% of students report severe psychological effects as a result of taking tests. There's an increase in suicide when standardized tests increase, according to MSNBC News. In 2017, the teen suicide rate was around 500 students, which increased with an increase in standardized tests. It's among one of the major factors contributing to the suicide rate. And it can be seen in other countries as well. In South Korea, which has the highest teen suicide rate in the world, close to 1,000 kids take their lives each year. They have a harsh system of standardized testing. Also, in a school district in Chicago, they have protocol for what to do if a student vomits on their testing material. They anticipate students to vomit on their material. A system that anticipates stress, anxiety, and vomiting is not in favor of the well-being of students involved. My second reason is that standardized testing is discriminatory. First, it's discriminatory on a racial basis. Studies show, according to the Wall Street Journal, that African American students on average score lower than 75% of white students. Additionally, standardized tests have a racist background. I mentioned the SAT in the beginning of my speech. The creator of the SAT, the first modern standardized test, Carl Campbell Brigham, was a known eugenicist who created and designed the questions, according to the Daily Beast, to stereotype and discriminate against African Americans, Jews, and other minorities in order to promote his own views. The design of the question specifically discriminates against these groups. It's also discriminatory on an economic basis. Low-income students score lower on average than high-income students. A study found that using the SAT scoring system, students that had a household income of around $200,000 scored 1,700 points on the old SAT scoring system. Students around $20,000 scored 1,100 points. Another example is the college prep industry, which has been created out of standardized testing to prioritize rich students. They have more access to resources, and they are more likely to have an extended amount of time taking these tests. They're more likely to retake tests as well. In conclusion, I affirm the resolution that the harms of standardized tests outweigh the benefits because they are harmful to the well-being of students and are discriminatory.
Okay, is everybody ready? Great, okay. My time will begin now. So we talked about suicide rates. Is this correct?
Yes.
Would you agree with me that there's many factors or different reasons why someone will commit suicide?
Yeah, yes, in fact, the source that I cited stated that suicide has now become one of the highest factors among others, such as bullying and peer pressure. So a lot of the link between an increase in suicide and an increase in and an increase in standardized testing occurred at the same time, and a lot of students attribute it to high anxiety, severe psychological effects, and
Thank
more.
you for answering my question. And backing up on that, you talked about South Korea. Do you have any specific examples in the United States?
Yeah, I did cite the 500 statistic in the United States.
Okay. Would you agree with me that pressure from the education system, pressure from your family to do well, that could also contribute to that, not just standardized testing?
The pressure is due to standardized testing. It's a byproduct of the standardized testing. So yes, I would say that. In fact, that is an argument. Pressure causes stress. So that's a good point. Thank you for bringing that up.
Okay. Moving on to my next question, you talk about how there's a racist background. Is that correct?
And it extends, yes.
Yes.
And an economic difference as well.
Just to clarify, when you talk about racist background, you're specifically talking about SAT, not all standardized testing, correct?
Well, that was the first modern. The reason I brought that up was just to show how the first modern test was designed this way, and it continues today.
Okay. And in terms of harms in today's debate, are we talking about harms specifically unique to standardized testing?
I would talk about harms that hurt the well-being of students involved.
So anything in general, basically, that hurts. Okay, let me set on my 4-minute timer for my constructive. Is everybody ready? Okay, my time will begin now. Imagine you were a college administrator and you had hundreds of thousands of applicants who have different grades, different GPA, different teachers, different classes. How could you possibly pick which one to go to a college? Luckily, you have standardized testing. Hello, Judge. My name is Teresa, and I strongly oppose today's resolution, as standardized testing does more harm than good. First, it accurately tests academic knowledge. And second, it causes the education system to improve. Now, moving on to my very first point, it accurately tests academic knowledge. Look, teaching grading is subjective and uneven. An A+ in one class may be a C- in another. And according to the Harvard Graduate School in 2019, teacher grading is inconsistent because students see 5, 6, 7 teachers every single day who teaches differently, has their own approaches to grading differently, and has a different level of strictness. A good skill in one class may mean a completely bad skill in another. Due to this subjective method, students are confused on where their academic talents truly lie. Luckily, there is a standard and an objective method, standardized testing. Standardized testing is standardized and not subjective. According to Fordham University, standardized tests are designed to be objective. With similar set of questions and a blind reviewer, it does just that. And according to University of Pennsylvania, standardized testing is a key tool for testing and measuring student knowledge, skills, and understanding. For example, if a student scores extremely high in reading, but extremely low on math on the SAT, you can clearly see where you're struggling with. Or a 5 in science on an AP, or a 1 in math, you can easily see that you're great at science but need to work on math. Due to this objective method and clearly seeing where you're at, this benefits teachers because now they know how to help their students and they know where their skills lie. And this also benefits students because now they have an objective method to truly see their progress. We're helping educators, and we're helping students. Second, it causes the education system to improve because it pinpoints areas that schools need to work on. 93% of studies have found standardized testing to have a quote-unquote positive effect on schools and education, according to a 100-year analysis in 2011 by Richard Phelps, who is a world-renowned education researcher. And according to Brian Nixon, who's a head administrator with the school district, he said, quote unquote, when we receive standardized testing data, we use it to analyze our educational program. We use it to reflect on our curriculum, and we determine where to divert more resources. For example, if you're a college administrator, or maybe if you're a principal, and you're seeing that one class is consistently getting a lower AP score than another, you can see that there's a problem. or if he's seeing a group of students not scoring as well as another group, once again, he can see a problem. And he can also compare it to other schools to see if it's just a problem occurring in your school or others. This system of checking, reforming will only improve school systems and make it the best that they can be, also improving our kids and their education. So this leads to a better education, better students, better learning, and a better system. So judge, for reasons of one, accurately testing academic knowledge and helping students out with objective methods, and two, causing the entire education system to improve, from reforming to fixing to helping students, cast our common ballot. Today's debate, a ballot to help these students. I now stand for cross-examination.
Is everyone ready? All right, I'll begin now. So in your hook, just to clarify, you said that standardized testing are good because they allow a metric for colleges, right?
Yes, it improves the college admission process.
All right. So moving on to your first point, you stated that standardized testing tests academic knowledge, but don't students learn differently?
Well, even if they learn differently, they're learning the same topic and skill, and
Well,
that could be tested.
Here, so you admit that students do learn differently. So then what's the benefits of having a one-size-fits-all standardized test?
The benefit of that, being able to accurately test academic knowledge because you can clearly have an objective method.
This is despite what you saying that they do have different ways of learning?
Well, just because they learn different doesn't mean they can't understand the same topic or the same concepts, which is
All
why
right, so when it comes to understanding these topics, what's the real-life application of multiple choice?
First things and foremost, the real life application is preparing them for success, preparing them for college, preparing them for tests and getting them into college. And college prepares them for success in life.
So you're saying that multiple choice prepares people for life?
First and foremost, I want to clarify that standardized tests don't just cover multiple choice. They cover response essays, what do you think questions.
Here, I'll move on to your second point. So you mentioned how it improves the educational system. So do standardized tests provide long-term benefits?
Of course, because when you're telling schools.
So just to clarify, you're saying that standardized tests are efficient at providing long-term benefits?
Of course, it helps schools and it helps students in the long run. It helps educators in the long run. It helps students in the long run because it helps the education system in the long run.
And one last question. You mentioned a 100-year analysis, but how can, all right. Can I use just 30 seconds for prep?
30 seconds starting now.
I'll begin. I'll begin now. In my speech, I mentioned Carl Campbell Burnham. He was a eugenicist who designed the first test, the SAT, in 1926. He specifically stated, according to the Daily Beast, that he designed it to promote his own theories of racial superiority. In fact, there's one example of a question that he designed that shows the lengths that he went. There was a question about golf on the standardized test. Now, this seems like a normal question that we wouldn't really understand why it'd be on a standardized test today. However, back in that era, segregation was prominent in society, and many African Americans were unaware of common knowledge about golf. And according to the Daily Beast, he designed this question as means to promote the stereotype. This corresponds to the argument of discrimination in standardized testing. The design of standardized testing is to test how good a person is at taking a test. And that corresponds to my question that I asked my opponent during the cross-examination. There is no real-life application of multiple choice. The real application is knowledge learned during school, which is taken away when we promote standardized tests. 20 to 25 hours of students' schooling each year is taken away for the testing process. In my opponent's first argument, she said that standardized tests test academic knowledge, but this isn't true. Like I said, it just tests how good a student is at taking a test. And she even admitted during the cross-examination that students learn differently, and a one-size-fits-all solution is not a solution at all. In her second argument on how standardized tests improve the educational system, I asked, are there long-term benefits? And she said, yes. This came as a shock to me because this is blatantly false. In fact, according to a study by the Brookings Institute, 50 to 80% of the results on standardized testing do not extend in the long term. These are short-term tests that are not helping our students. They're simply promoting separation on economic lines and racial lines. Students are able to be prioritized because they have more money in order to prepare for these tests. And when the tests are given, they're hurting the students by causing stress, suicide, and taking away from their education, which is why the harms outweigh the benefits for standardized tests.
Okay, 3-minute refutation. Let me just quickly set up my timer.
You need any prep time?
No, I think I'm good to. Is everyone ready? Okay, my time will begin now. Judge, my opponent's very first contention was that it hurts a student's well-being. First and foremost, Decon side just wants to clear up one thing. Decon highly values mental health, and it's an important issue. As someone who has struggled with anxiety for the past 3 years, and as an advocate for mental health, I want to say first and foremost, I know how it feels. Sometimes I'm so anxious to the point where my left leg cannot move anymore, or I'm like quivering and shaking so much, my right ear, I can hear the blood gushing around, and sometimes I can't even breathe. I know how it feels to have anxiety. However, first and foremost, I would never blame a test for something I personally face. It's not the problem with the test at all. It's because I have anxiety. It's like driving a car and then throwing up and getting car sick. You threw up because you have car sickness, not because the car is a harm or the car is really, really bad. Your car sickness is bad. And my opponent also touches on a deep issue of suicide. However, I just want to clear up one thing. Suicide has many layers. It's not like you take one test and you're done and you leave. There's many factors. Home life, pressure, the education system pressuring you to achieve a certain way, how your family pressures you. Standardized tests is not the main factor in this. In fact, it's all testing in general, the whole education system, and maybe even your home life. In terms of mental health and well-being, the concept is actually helping their well-being because by giving them academic success, by letting them get into good colleges, they're able to have a great financial stable life, which actually improves their mental health. My opponent's second and final contention was that there's discriminatory measures. First, they talk about racial discriminating measures. However, minority differences between scores is due to home life, family values, or even your educational background and what you know academically. And judge, even if you don't buy this point, we're actually benefiting people of color minorities. If you don't believe me, take a look at some civil rights groups. They actually agree with the Con side. For example, the NAACP. They said, quote unquote, data from standardized testing is important to the civil rights community because they're an objective source about data with disparities. Even the NAACP, which is a major civil rights group, sides with the Con. Why? Because standardized tests allows us to view major problems and be part of the solution. We're actually helping people of color. And the NAACP also agrees with us. And my opponent's second final contention is about class. But however, Judge, we're actually helping people lower class. One, because we're breaking the poverty cycle. Because, for example, there was a girl named Liz Moray who was homeless and had no money, but because of standardized testing, she was able to get into a great college. And two, we're spotting problems within society with clear data, making it part of the solution. Judge, for the following reasons, and for the sake of helping people of color and being the side that NAACP chooses, casts a combat in today's debate. Thank you.
Okay, Ben, would you like to use the rest of your prep time?
Yeah, I'll just run it. Yeah.
Okay, a minute 30 for 7 minutes.
I'll begin now. American students take 112 standardized tests on average in their education. Yet the true intent of these tests has not changed since their creation. What has changed is the role they play in society. Because many colleges are now looking at tests as a measurement of success. But as this debate has shown, that clearly is not true. Not only do students learn differently, but there's discrimination within these tests that prioritize certain individuals. This is why the largest impact of this debate is the well-being of the students and the efficiency of the tests. I have argued that hundreds of students take their lives because of standardized testing. We know this because of the 11% of students that reported severe psychological effects. Standardized testing is hurting our students, and they are taking their lives. I mentioned the example of protocols for what to happen when students vomited. They anticipated students to vomit, and they still carried out these testings. My opponent contrasted this with providing personal background. Yet overall, we are seeing students take their lives. And when it comes to efficiency, I cited the statistic on how 50 to 80% of standardized test results are not even long-term. They simply measure how well a person prepared for a test based on their background and economic status, and how well a person can take a test.
I'll use the rest of my prep time, please, for the summary speech.
Okay, you didn't use any, so that's 2 minutes. Let me know if you want to finish your prep.
My time will begin now. It's crazy to think about how much my life has changed because of standardized testing, says Liz Murray, whose parents were crack and drug addicts, who was kicked out and homeless since high school, who had to go to homeless shelters in order to get food and water, says that standardized testing gave her a chance again in life, gave her a purpose again in life. Hello, Judge. My name is Teresa, and I won today's debate because I win on impact, and I'm the only one who has fulfilled the resolution. So what exactly is today's resolution? It's standardized testing does more harm than good. So let's look at these harms, and let's look at the good. For example, let's start off with the harms. My opponent claims that it hurts people of color of low class. However, we're actually helping people of color and people of low class. So that actually is a good. Not only are we breaking them out of the poverty cycle, but we're helping bring awareness. And civil rights groups even agree with the con side. Another harm that my opponent talks about is mental health and suicide. However, first and foremost, that's not specifically because of standardized tests. There's many outside factors. Suicide can be due to the education system pressuring you as a whole, or your family life pressuring you as a whole. But Judge, even if we don't buy this, first and foremost, remember Liz Murray, who was a homeless girl whose parents kicked her out, who had no purpose in life. But getting a great grade on the test and getting to college and being able to break the poverty cycle gave her a purpose in life again when she was about to end it. We're improving the education system. We're breaking that poverty cycle. We're providing civil rights groups with objective data, including NAACP, and we're also giving people a purpose to live again. We're giving people a chance at their careers, giving people a chance to stand out on the standardized tests, and giving people a chance they never had before. Judge, vote con in today's debate. We easily have more harms. We're actually helping people's lives and benefiting them. We easily have more harms. We outweigh them. Cast a combat in today's debate. Thank you.